Part 98. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 974. Now it is your turn. After the half-star monster stepped on the avatar of Jia, a highly talented second-level expert, to the ground, a bright flame suddenly flashed in its eyes. He flew towards Jia, who was escaping in front. Humph. Can't enter subspace. Jia was flying ahead, but he felt that his body could not enter the subspace. A strong person in the second level, even if he takes advantage of the characteristics of the concept ship, perfectly cooperates with his own cell power, and his strength far exceeds the average strong person in the second level. There is no way he can compete with the strong person in the second level. Especially at normal flying speed, the opponent's pursuit is extremely fast. Now Jia is pushing harder and closer, getting closer and closer to the opponent. Boom! At a certain moment, Jia felt that the world around him was completely dark. The other party used the power to control the world. This is a semi-star level powerhouse, most similar to a star level monster. Although they cannot be compared with stellar level monsters, their control power cannot be competed by the sub-level. Especially Jiayan's current strength is not sub-level, but a venerable. He just has a concept chip and cell energy. It's just like a secondary level. It's difficult to move. But I won't give up. Jiayan's eyes flashed with strange color, and then he suddenly flew towards the open space on one side. In fact, Jiayan also admitted that he had some miscalculations, because he did not estimate that there was actually a plan to control subspace talents on Carnival Star, and even he was somewhat affected. Change of direction? It's useless, the opponent's body was already behind Jiayan. Seeing Jiayan change direction, he sneered. The opponent is a semi-star existence, and its body is several times larger than the hundreds of meters of crow monster Jiayan is showing outside now, and it even looks like 3 or 4 kilometers in length. Under the sky and the sun, the opponent struck out his claws. This claw is different from when dealing with Jiayan's clone. It is basically meant to kill Jiayan directly with one blow. Since he sees Jiayan as a genius who is unknown to him, he does not think that Jiayan has any meaning in living. Otherwise, they would not dare to kill any strong man who offends their disciples as long as he is a genius. If so, wouldn't it mean that all geniuses would come to make trouble in the future? This half-star genius is worthy of being a medium-talented being, and in the dark realm, his strength indeed seems to be slightly stronger than the medium-talented half-star geniuses in the outside world. Now that he was sure that Jiayan was going to change direction, he immediately changed the direction of his attack, chased after Jiayan's back, and clawed out. There was a sound from this claw, like thunder piercing the ears, showing the terrifying power. But his absolutely confident attack suddenly went awry. It turned out that when he struck out his claws, he suddenly felt an attraction appearing from the side of his claws. What? The half-star monster looked at the sky on the side of the claws in surprise, but found nothing. Humph, it turns out this is the power in subspace. The next moment, that weird attraction appeared again, and the opponent's claws deflected again, narrowly grazing the side of Jiayan's concept ship. After the other party was influenced again, he immediately understood what Jiayan was playing. Buzz. The entire space froze hard. Jiayan, whose subspace talent was originally suppressed by the surrounding technological equipment, finally found that he could not even open the space to summon black hole assistance. Humph, there are no more tricks, just die. Jiayan flew in front of the half-star monster, a look of madness in his eyes. He knew that his strength could not be compared with a mid-level half-star genius, but he absolutely did not believe that the other party could really kill him with one blow. I fought with him once before, and he didn't hold back. And that time, there seemed to be a faint power that I had never seen burst out of my body. What if I fight with him again this time? After the strange color appeared in Jiayan's eyes, he stopped avoiding and turned around. Then the crow's claws shot out, and the opponent's dinosaur claws that were also shot hit each other. Bang! A terrifying and powerful sound erupted between heaven and earth. What? I can't even break through this power. The half-star expert didn't think that Jia Yan's attack to block him would be effective. In the previous exchange of attacks, he only thought that he was trying to save his genius and did not kill Jia Yan. This time he with enough power, Jia Yan couldn't stop it no matter what. But the reality was beyond his expectation. The claws of both sides slapped together. Just looking at their size, it would be hard to believe that both sides were the same heavyweight players, but the actual situation is. After Jia Yan's blow, his body exploded. Alarms erupted throughout the concept ship, and many alarm windows appeared. But the opponent's body was not feeling well either. After the exchange of blows with Jia Yan, he retreated at least 500 meters. Although Jia Yan was pushed back at least 100 kilometers by the force of the counter-shock, the fact that he, a mere second-level expert, even with a high level of talent, could do this has already stunned his opponents and the onlookers. The monsters were all horrified. Even Jia Yan himself had a little doubt. I didn't expect that the exchange of blows between Fang Ke would end like this. Originally, I thought the concept ship was going to break in some places, but now it's just an alarm. Why? Jia Yan looked at the claws of the concept ship he had photographed with some surprise, and then saw a touch of burnt black on it. And the surging power left traces of the explosion in the claws. Huh? Is the power I used just now so powerful? Jia Yan was confused. He understood that there were still too many things he didn't understand about his evolved beast body. Just like now, he couldn't explain the current combat power of his body. For example, he has always believed that even if he uses the power of cells and combines it with the strength of a concept ship, he is generally not much different from a high-level genius. But now it seems that he still underestimated his evolved beast body. Normally, even when flying with explosive force, this cellular power is not used, but when fighting with the opponent, it can explode through the hull of the concept ship. Is this the true strength of cellular power? Jia Yan looked at his body in horror. Then a smile floated in his eyes. In that case, let's have a big fight. Jia Yan actually refused to dodge and charged suddenly towards the half-star monster who was also shocked. Court death. The half-star expert seemed a little surprised when he saw that Jia Yan could fight him head-on without dying. He even thought of a word. That is the top genius. We must know that it is possible for a truly top genius, even a second-level powerhouse, to be able to compete with a mid-level talent and a semi-star powerhouse like this. But if the opponent is a top genius, he will not dare to kill at all. Every top genius will involve huge forces, and even the genius battlefield official will dispatch stellar experts to protect such people at all times. Surrounded by geniuses. At this time, he was a little confused, but when he saw that Jia Yan didn't know what to do and dared to attack him instead, his expression suddenly changed, and then fierce flames rose. He didn't care whether the opponent was a top genius or not, so he would fight first. Boom. This time, the existence of half the star level actually erupted into another collision sound high in the atmosphere close to the starry sky. The two beings, who had a huge gap in strength, met their opponents once again. Although Jia Yan was pushed back 100 kilometers by the powerful force, the half-star being also retreated several hundred meters again. The most important thing is that Jia Yan, who was supposed to be defeated, actually looked unscathed. Sure enough, my current cell power will show terrifying power when it collides with my opponent's huge force. Under this blow, Jia Yan suddenly understood the terrifying power of his own cells. That's how it should be. Fortunately, I used to think that the cells of evolved beasts can preserve power, which is incredible. But now it seems that I have completely underestimated the evolved beast race. The secret of cell power is also a lot of But even if Jia Yan thinks there are still many secrets of evolved beasts that he doesn't understand, he thinks it's enough at this time. He was completely unafraid to fight this mid-level talent half-star head-on. Boy, why don't you stop quickly? I think you have a good talent. Now stay and tell me the background of the force behind you. This force may let you go. Why bother to fight like this? When the half-star being saw Jia Yanzhen fighting him again with almost all his strength, his expression changed instantly. But he didn't finish his words at all. He only felt a threatening attack from behind him, like a dagger thrust into the dark night, slashing straight into his body. Who? The semi-stellar being looked furious and then struck back. The sneak attack entity staggered dozens of kilometers away. So it's you? Boy from the Northern Regiment, if you dare to fight with our useless regiment again, be careful that I won't care about your life anymore. When this semi-stellar being saw the sneak attacker, his nose and mouth were almost crooked with anger, and he wished he could curse the attacker to death. It turns out that the person behind the sneak attack was the Jia Yan clone that he kindly let go before. Of course, now he has no idea about the relationship between the other person and Jia Yan. He just thought that he was kind-hearted and didn't want to kill, but this junior from the North Regiment actually dared to enter the battle group and jump around. But there was no response to his words. Jia Yan and the clone looked cold. At this time, the scope of the battle had already reached several hundred kilometers away from the Carnival Star. Here, Jia Yan felt that his restricted spatial talent was showing signs of loosening. Now that it's loose, the real battle begins now. Jia Yan looked at the half-star genius of the disciple group with dark eyes. With space talent, cell power, a concept chip body, and high-level talent secondary clones, his current strength, even if it still belongs to the venerable, is no longer afraid of this mid-level talent and stellar genius. Fight, fight, fight. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 975. In the loud explosion, Jia Yan suddenly rushed towards the opponent's body. At the same time, his innate clone from that level was like an old partner who cooperated well, attacking the semi-stellar monster from a tricky angle. Crazy. You are just two geniuses, but you dare to attack me. If you want to die, I will help you. The half-star genius finally couldn't bear it any longer. Even though the geniuses of these two times had a distinguished status, but now that they were angry, how could he care about the other person's life? Clay figurines all have tempers, let alone strong men from the universe who are used to fighting. Since you two guys are looking for death, you can't blame me. This half-star monster was not worried about defeat at all, and rushed towards Jia Yan to fight with his clone. His body is like a terrifying giant elephant, while Jia Yan and his clone are nothing more than two jackals at best. But if you fight wisely, it is entirely possible for the jackal to defeat the giant elephant. When the dinosaur monster rushed towards Jia Yan and his clone, he controlled the power of heaven and earth and rose up. Jia Yan and his avatar were shocked, and both of them were greatly disappointed. But at this moment, Jia Yan's real body is better than his clone. With great energy, the concept chip pumps out terrifying power. The predecessor froze in an instant. It was foreseeable that if he faced a dinosaur and a half-star alone, he would definitely not have the power to backhand Shu Hao. But it's different now. Jia Yan was the first to face the dinosaur monster, but the opponent's power could not completely suppress him. Although Jia Yan moved slower, he still faced the half-star monster without any deviation. Die. The opponent's blow seemed to be twice as powerful as before. Buzz. Between the whole world, a space force opened up, and then a force of attraction surged out from the open subspace. Affected by this attraction, the dinosaur monster's blow passed Jia Yan's body again. Jia Yan pecked out the crow's metal body's beak, and struck the dinosaur monster's claws. Snort. The dinosaur monster groaned, then took a step back involuntarily. His injuries were not serious. After all, although Jia Yan had the bonus of cellular energy, his strength was still not very strong, at least not to the extent that he was seriously injured. This retreat represents the shock of the dinosaur monster. You must know that he has never thought that a sub-level genius could hurt him. After being startled, he suddenly felt a sense of embarrassment and anger. Being hurt by the existence of Ci Guan, even if Jia Yan is obviously an existence with extremely terrible talent, this incident will definitely be a stain on his life in the future, and he will be laughed at by his colleagues and friends for the rest of his life. So he was angry. Court death. The opponent saw that after Jia Yan's blow, his strength was slightly weakened. At this time, he took another step forward and controlled his strength to suppress Jia Yan's body with all his strength. He poked out the sharp nails of his claws and aimed at the head of Jia Yan concept ship, hoping to kill the metal monsters that had confronted him head-on several times with one blow. But at the same time as he attacked Jia Yan, he felt a strong wind blowing from his side. It turned out to be a highly talented clone that was previously controlled by the power of the dinosaur monster. At this time, because the opponent was targeting Jia Yan's true form with all his strength, he had already charged forward. Regardless of the difference in strength, he attacked the opponent's side fiercely. "Forget it, you dare to come here with your strength." The dinosaur monster looked gloomy, and Jia Yan faced him head-on several times. Although he still looked down on Jia Yan's strength, he also recognized that Jia Yan's real body had the strength to fight against him, but what was this incoming clone? A high-level talent, a second-level genius, could barely move under his control. Would such a guy dare to attack him? Roll. Although he didn't want to deal with this clone, he couldn't let the opponent attack his body. After all, it was a sub-level attack with advanced talents. No matter how much the dinosaur monster underestimated the opponent, he didn't think he could withstand the opponent's attack without being injured. He controlled the power and used it, and the clone that attacked was completely controlled. When it slapped out a claw, it was about to kill the clone monster with one blow. "If you want to kill him, you have to get through me first." Beside this half-star monster, space tunnels opened, and Jia Yan's front feet gently shot out of them. The claws struck by the opponent collided with Jia Yan's front feet. The body of Jia Yan's concept ship is not afraid of the opponent's huge force to a certain extent, but this time, the alarm sounds in the concept ship are getting louder and louder. But with Jia Yan's blocking, the claws shot out by the dinosaur monster were offset by the collision with Jia Yan's front feet. Jia Yan retreated 100 miles, while the dinosaur monster retreated several hundred meters away. Before the dinosaur monster could recover, Jia Yan's secondary clone was already in front of him. Bang! After a crisp sound, a clear wound appeared on the forehead of the semi-stellar dinosaur monster. "Sure enough, you are looking for death." The other party was really angry. Jia Yan's real body was okay and could fight against him, but this clone that could even kill him with one blow was like a dogskin plaster, always getting close to him as if he was not afraid of death. He came in front of him. This time, the injury caused to him was not serious, but it also caused him a greater loss of face. His claws clapped out. But when his claws hit the second-level clone, the second-level clone, which was originally controlled by his power, flew backwards uncontrollably and entered a twisted place before his claws hit his body. The claw that came to attack was knocked empty with one claw. It turns out that in the twisted space, there is a big black ball in the middle. The huge force of the clone's retreat is the attraction coming from this black hole. Always playing tricks, damn it. The dinosaur and half-star monster was really furious when he saw this scene. He was about to exert control over his power, extending the tentacles of power directly into the subspace, suppressing the existence inside, and then killing its internal existence with one blow. The half-star monster suddenly felt a wave of movement behind it. It turned out to be the body of Jia Yan's concept ship, and it actually came out of the subspace behind him, and a forefoot fiercely attacked his back. The dinosaur monster didn't even dare to ignore the attack of Jia Yan's Siguan clone, and it didn't even dare to underestimate Jia Yan's attack. You must know that this is a second-level monster that can confront him head-on to a certain extent. Of course, even now, he doesn't know that the monster he faces is not a sub-level monster at all. It's really just a venerable person. The sky and space clashed again. The battle was fierce above, but on the stars below, a pair of eyes seemed to be stunned. Whether it was the surviving 4 major sub-level experts of Carnival Star or the drunken guests of Carnival Star, looking at the scene above their heads, they all thought there was something wrong with their eyes. The ones fighting in the air were 2 great sub-level geniuses fighting against a star and a half. Are their eyes blurred? When will 2 high-level geniuses with secondary talents be able to fight against a semi-stellar being with medium talents? This is too unscientific. After all, there is a whole level difference between the 2 parties. Even if the 2 of them join forces, under normal circumstances, both of them will be killed easily. But the current situation. There seems to be a faint sign that the upper levels of the Carnival Star and a half star are falling behind. Oh my god, who is that metal monster? He can actually fight head-on with a medium-talented semi-star genius, and a second-level genius on the other side. Although his performance is not much different from a normal high-level talented second-level genius, but the combination with the metal genius is so good that even with a body that can die in one hit, he can succeed in a battle of this level. The battle situation was so terrifying that some geniuses who were so happy that they gave up on themselves stared blankly at the battle between the 3 monsters in the sky. This battle is a leapfrog battle. A battle between a sub-level genius and a semi-star existence, a battle that makes the spectators excited. The performance of Jia Yan and his avatar was like 2 teammates who worked well together. They always customized the opponent just right, and the opponent's strength completely surpassed theirs and they could not fully display it. I'm so angry. You 2 juniors, if you have the ability, just fight me openly. What's the point of joining forces? Perhaps his head was damaged from the battle. After the half-star being was slightly injured again, he screamed loudly. What kind of half-star level are you talking about? Why don't 2 sub-level beings join forces? How about this? You wait until we reach half-star level and then fight again. You can choose between the 2 of us. Wait until we reach half-star level. At the stellar level, anyone can fight you. Jia Yan stepped out of the subspace, and then made sarcastic remarks to the semi-stellar opponent who was yelling angrily. This sentence blocked the existence of half of the stars, and they were speechless. In fact, he himself knows that even though he now says that Jia Yan and his clone are 2 people attacking him alone, this dinosaur monster is, after all, a mid-level talent with a half-star level, and the average high-level talent is second to none. Although his talent is stronger than his, there is a huge level gap. How can he not kill one by one in a normal fight? Now that the other party can defeat him together, it is already extremely powerful. He has no reason to say that it is wrong for others to join forces. In other words, it should be said that it is wrong for him, a semi-star senior, to attack 2 secondary beings. As for what Jia Yan said, wait until one of them reaches the semi-star level before fighting him. This half-star being would not dare to agree. You must know that he can't fight against 2 geniuses now. If they join forces, if a person reaches the semi-star level, he will be killed within 10 moves. Don't you dare? If you don't dare, then stop yelling and keep fighting. Jia Yan stepped into the subspace with one front foot, and from a distance he was about to cooperate with his clone again and join forces to fight the enemy again. But at the next moment, Jia Yan's demeanor changed, and then he came to the subpass clone. A force pulled the clone into the subspace, and the 2 disappeared together. The half-star dinosaur monster that was waiting for it was shocked to feel that Jia Yan was actually driving the subspace and was about to escape. What? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 976. The next moment, the dinosaur monster understood. On the carnival star body behind him, the auras of half-star existences chased after him in an almost terrifying manner that exceeded Jia Yan's escape speed. Finally here he sighed somewhat depressedly. It turned out that the other half-star high UPS of the disciple group on the carnival star chased them out. Jia Yan still dared to stretch out his hand for a star and a half-star being, but he didn't dare to have several of them come out at the same time. Even among the flying beings, there is one who may even be a highly talented semi-star strong person. If Jia Yan is really stupid and fights, he may not be able to escape. So he directly took the second-level clone and ran away. This guy seems to be even more sensitive than me. Is this still a sub-level? Seeing Jia Yan's behavior of escaping long before the half-star companions below arrived, the dinosaur monster let out a long, speechless sigh. You must know that he only noticed the appearance of his half-star colleagues on Carnival Planet later. Jia Yan expected it earlier than he did. Doesn't it mean that his perception ability is better than that of his half-star genius? Stop chasing him. That guy has subdimensional talent. We can't catch him. Just when several semi-star beings were about to pass by the dinosaur monster made a sound. Humph, what do you think we should do? Now people have been offended. You know the strength of this genius best. Now that we have offended him, it may be a disaster in the future. A semi-star being with the same average talent as the dinosaur monster stopped, and then spoke to the dinosaur monster plausibly. How do I know that these two guys are so difficult to deal with? If it were you, you would probably be the same as me. The dinosaur monster was obviously not too good at dealing with this half-star colleague, and the two suddenly became at war with each other. You all should stop fighting among yourself. The two great geniuses in the past are not ordinary people, especially the guy from the Metal Clan. I think his talent may be far beyond our imagination. Since he was escaped by the other party, we need to figure out how to remedy it quickly. Just when they were arguing, a more grandiose aura came to them. This is the only highly talented semi-star existence on the entire Carnival Star, and he is also the undisputed #1 powerhouse on the entire Carnival Star. Yes, sir, the two controversial monsters responded respectfully. Of course, Dinosaur Monster was also a little bit dissatisfied at this time. He thought that the highly talented half-star leader appeared too late. If he had appeared earlier, would he be afraid that he would not be able to catch Jia Yan and the others? Of course, Jia Yan and his clones who escaped in the subspace didn't know that there was a small dispute among the half-star geniuses chasing them from behind. At this time, Jia Yan was just flying wildly. You are so strong. A voice sounded from behind the Jia Yan metal concept ship. It turns out that this is the female monster who escaped from Carnival Star with Jia Yan. When Jia Yan was escaping before, the other party happened to be escaping right in front of Jia Yan. Jia Yan easily pulled her into the subspace. Of course it's not about comradeship or anything like that. Whether we are strong or not has nothing to do with you. I didn't save you in vain. I have to maintain the movement and safety of the three of them in the subspace, which consumes too much energy. You have been undercover in this Carnival Star for a long time, so you must have an escape plan. Please take us there together now, otherwise I will throw you out of the subspace directly. Jia Yan said calmly to the female monster behind. Humph, you are so unmanly. When the female monster heard what Jia Yan said, she just felt a little favorable toward Jia Yan for saving her, but all of it suddenly disappeared. But she didn't dare to ask Jia Yan to really throw her out of the subspace, because even if she flew in the subspace for a while, she was not far away from the Carnival Star. If she was thrown out now, she would definitely be above the Carnival Star. The strong man sensed it. To the left, at a distance of 153 degrees, there is a ship that I am preparing to escape from, the female monster said helplessly to Jia Yan. Jia Yan smiled slightly when he heard this, and then turned in that direction. In fact, he was not lying when he said that he had consumed a lot of power. The battle just now looked like a battle between two monsters and the dinosaur and half-star being, but in fact, what no one knew was that the one who controlled these two monsters, it's all Jia Yan. This requires too much energy, especially when the clone is fighting with all its strength. Jia Yan's secret energy to control the clone will also consume more brainwave power. To know his true brainwave power, he is only at the level of a venerable. It would be strange for a star and a half being not to be tired after fighting continuously. Although the speed in subspace is fast, the surrounding space is still the carnival star area. Even more broadly, the disciples control this land that is nearly half a light year in radius. If they don't think of a way to leave quickly, there is still the possibility of danger. Soon, Jia Yan took his clone and the female monster to the place mentioned by the female monster. Here, there is indeed a camouflaged streamlined ship. Spaceships in the universe have different appearances due to different functions. Of course, in the world of the strong in the universe, strong battleships are always indispensable, but in fact there are many other ships, and this one is the one in front of you. One of them. This streamlined-looking ship is about 2 kilometers in size, and it seems to be just enough for 3 or 4 sub-level monsters to enter. Jia Yan and his clone did not hesitate much and entered this fast ship, which seemed to be very fast but had no defense or attack capabilities. Okay, I'm going to activate it. The speed of this fast ship is more than 3 times that of ordinary warships, but if it is attacked, there is no way to deal with it. I hope we won't be intercepted. The female monster gave instructions to Jia Yan and the others, and then started the ship. Not long after, at the place where the ship docked, a dark light shot towards the starry sky like an arrow from a string. The clipper is out. On this ship, Jia Yan no longer cared so much, so he crouched down and acted as a guard. He quickly took out some energy substances. The condensate stirred slightly and began to be absorbed. Of course, all this cannot be seen by the outside world. After all, Jia Yan's real body is in the concept ship. You should take this opportunity to rest. I will call you if anything happens. The female monster was pretty good. While acting as the driver, she spoke to Jia Yan and his clone. She couldn't see Jia Yan's real body in the concept ship at all, and had already begun to recover. The clone did not answer her words, which made the female monster who spoke alone a little depressed. The fast ship is indeed a ship that specializes in speed. The speed it shoots out is completely better than that of ordinary powerful battleships. In this cosmic area, it is like an inconspicuous darkness, quickly sailing away from the area where the disciples are. This journey seemed to have been extremely smooth because they escaped quickly and the entire disciples group had not yet launched a hunt for them. I don't know how long it took. Hey, all of you, wake up. We have left the star area where the disciples are. Do you want to disembark? Just when Jia Yan felt that he had almost recovered, the voice of the female monster suddenly came from the outside. Already left the star area where the disciples are located? So fast. Jia Yan activated the concept ship body, and then asked the female monster with some surprise. Of course, I'm flying on a route that few people know about, and there are no checkpoints at all, the female monster responded to Jia Yan with some pride. Seeing Jia Yan start to ponder, she thought with some hesitation, and then Zhen Zhong continued to speak to Jia Yan. You are probably not a genius in our dark territory. I don't know why you came to the dark territory, but I think that if you want to continue to recover your strength, you can rest in my force. Of course, you can also treat this as an invitation. If I can invite a genius like you to join my force, everyone in our force will be very happy. The female monster said these words after careful consideration. After all, she had witnessed the fighting prowess of Jia Yan, a genius. You know, the strength of Jia Yan, a strong person in the second level, can almost compete with a moderately talented and semi-star genius. And among the forces she belongs to, there is no high-end semi-star genius at all. In other words, Jia Yan's addition of Guantian K this time is directly the top combat power in the entire force, and he is also a future unlimited combat power. Her abacus was good. After all, she believed that Jia Yan had consumed a lot of energy in the previous battle, and now it was time to recover in a place full of energy. But what she didn't expect was that after hearing her invitation, Jia Yan directly controlled the body of the concept ship and shook his head lightly. No, I'm in the Dark Realm and don't want to join any forces. Thank you for the invitation. I'm sorry. Well, it's okay. So what are your plans now? Are you going to disembark? Or you can just go and be a guest in my force, the female monster asked again with some disappointment. Let's get off the ship. Jia Yan shook his head, then controlled his metal body and headed out of the ship. Naturally, the clones did not speak and flew out of the ship together. The female monster was extremely disappointed, but she could not retain these two men whose fighting power far exceeded hers, so she had no choice but to watch Jia Yan and the two outside the ship. By the way, I'm in this Dark Realm, accepting a mission. If your forces have any suitable missions, you can come to me. If I can do it after evaluation, I will complete it. My communication number is this. Jia Yan was just about to lead the clone away, but at the moment of leaving, he seemed to have an impromptu thought and said this to the female monster. When the female monster received the contact signal sent by Jia Yan in a daze, Jia Yan and her clone had already transformed into a flash of lightning and disappeared into the starry sky visible to her naked eyes. What two terrifying geniuses, especially the one named Mok. He is simply a terrifying genius that I have never heard of. Is he really a top genius? Looking at the dark starry sky where Jia Yan and the two left, the female monster was a little stunned. The experience of meeting Jia Yan and his clone seemed to her like a dream now. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 977. Jia Yan had never thought that when he was a venerable, he was not considered a top genius. Now that he is wearing a concept ship, he is considered a top genius at the second level. As someone who has fought against geniuses in the outside world, Jia Yan believes that his current strength in a concept ship is at best a high-level talent, not even a top-level genius. Of course, he didn't know what a real top genius looked like, but Jia Yan was sure that if a top genius with a second-level powerhouse appeared, he would dare to fight. Even if he was temporarily at a disadvantage, he could rely on the physical strength of the evolved beast. And the energy advantage of the concept ship, it's hard to say who will win in the end. What I said just now is not wrong. Since I have come to this dark realm, no matter why I came here, I have to think about ways to continue to become stronger when I get here. What's more, in this dark realm, I can feel something I haven't felt in a long time. It would be too boring to live and die without doing work like a mercenary. Jia Yan and his clone have arrived in the subspace again. Before, he flew slowly in the universe in order not to let the female monster know that he was recovering very quickly. Now after entering the subspace, the speed of the concept ship exploded. Jia Yan almost used it to exceed that speed. The speed of the speeding ship is moving forward. Jia Yan knew that he was strong enough now, and the battle he just faced with the semi-star existence was a representative battle, and with this kind of strength, he had nothing to fear. The name I use now is Mok. This name will definitely become louder in the dark realm in the future. Jia Yan thought with a smile, wondering how the real Mok would feel if he knew that he had used his name to leave legends in several areas throughout the galaxy. After flying for a long time, Jia Yan jumped out of the subspace and looked at the star map. At this distance, This dark area is already close to the edge. If we fly any further, we will be out of the dark area. Then I will stop here. Jia Yan took a look at the surrounding starry sky. There was no shortage of anything in the genius battlefield, especially the amount of interstellar matter that blocked the passage in the starry sky to an annoying level. Picking a small interstellar material with a diameter of about 100 kilometers, Jia Yan flew to it. This is my starting point in the dark realm. Now let's build a living quarters. Jia Yan's eyes were filled with joy. Nothing could make him feel more excited than being able to build a residence with his own hands. Just like when he was a child, he used pebbles to write in a smelly pond. Now he still values something like home. The front feet are sharp, and the clone also uses its muscle tendons to clean up interstellar matter piece by piece. Two terrifying second-level geniuses sorted out a star with a diameter of 100 kilometers, which was simply overkill. It didn't take 3 days for Jia Yan to roughly sort out the star. On the flat ground, a huge building with a height of 500 meters and an area of 5 kilometers was built using gravel. Of course, everything is still rudimentary and the details cannot be seen. But it's enough to have some airs, and that's all Jia Yan can do now. Jia Yan even thought about it and carved a large plaque with gravel on the gate of the huge building, which read, Tingtian Pavilion. This is not a text written in the universal language of the universe, but in Earth Chinese characters, still in regular script. Although Jia Yan has not returned to China for a long time, he has an excellent memory. He remembers many things that he remembered in his previous life. Especially when it comes to writing, his foot control is enough for him to imitate and write authentic regular script. Good. Jia Yan looked at the words on the building. He was satisfied, but suddenly he fell silent. The ancient memories were recalled, making Jia Yan not sure what to think, but all in all, he had mixed emotions. The name Tingtian Pavilion, which is full of Chinese flavor, made Jia Yan have some thoughts about the style of ancient China. Some of the ancient Chinese principles of life, as well as Zen rituals, etc., seem to be of some help to me now. Jia Yan entered Tingtian Pavilion, and the rough stone style around it seemed to have a touch of charm under the decoration of the flat gate. Prone on the ground, Jia Yan then recovered his body while meditating on the general direction. In the eyes of ancient Chinese people, although I am powerful now and can destroy people on earth with a flip of my hand, my performance has always been a bit superficial and my behavior is not very calm. I need to improve in the future. By reminiscing about ancient Chinese customs, Jia Yan quickly discovered some shortcomings in his character and behavior. Of course, this kind of thing is not easy to change, and it takes a long time to settle. After thinking a lot, until Jia Yan felt that he seemed to have gained something, and his mood was no longer full of impetuousness, Jia Yan took out the brain. Opening the brain map, Jia Yan first looked at the forces in the surrounding star areas. Sure enough, as I thought, this edge place is a buffer zone from the ordinary area of genius battlefield. It is impossible for any powerful force to establish a stronghold here. There are only some small forces around it, and even the forces called a gang that doesn't get on. After Jia Yan looked at the map, he was very satisfied with the place he chose. Then he opened some message boards. Even if the creatures in the universe are powerful and their technology is not much higher than that of the Earth, some common things will not change, such as communication and a place for discussion. These will not change no matter how advanced the technology is. Therefore, it is not surprising that there is something like a message board in the dark network. Tingtian Pavilion undertakes various tasks, including killing people and stealing goods, rescuing people and collecting goods, and constructing science and technology. As long as you can afford the price, Tingtian Pavilion will be happy to serve you. Jia Yan happily typed out rows of words and sent them out. Yes, Jia Yan is advertising. As for whether Jia Yan's strength is sufficient for the task he was told, the question is simpler. Before accepting the task, he will judge what to do and whether he can do it. If not, he will naturally not accept it. Of course, talking too much will make people hate you. Heh, what a strange slogan. Is this actually a mission-based firm? You're still killing people and stealing goods. I want to kill a powerful half-star master. Do you dare? You can't find Ting Tianga's name on the internet at all. Please be careful of scammers. When Jia Yan posted the slogan of Ting Tianga, there were a lot of replies soon. Because he sent the message in the relevant section, a lot of professionals jumped out to scold it, and many of them were smeared by their peers. Of course, if colleagues who understand the current situation of this so-called Ting Tian Pavilion, they may not even have the intention to slander him. He is just a polished commander, not even qualified by several dark forces, and is just an industry insider. I'm talking about Ye Dian. If anyone would believe the advertisements in a place like this, they would be fools, and there is no way it could be compared with their regular offices. Jia Yan doesn't care about all this. He just keeps leaving his advertisements in some message communities and forums. Of course, just like online forums on Earth, his account was banned by many message boards due to suspected advertising. If the quantity is large, there must be people who are cheated. No, I should say there are customers who come to the door. Just as Jia Yan continued to send messages, no business came to his door for several days. A dialed communication was transferred to Jia Yan's number. Are you Ting De Ji? I want to do something with you. After Jia Yan connected to the communication, his expression perked up, and he responded with a smile, "This is Ting Tianga, sir. I am happy to serve you. I don't know what you want to do." Of course, Jia Yan would not deny the word you the other party said. Any firm needs at least several people. He is just a bachelor and does not deserve to be called you. It's like this. I come from a small force in the ordinary star region. Some time ago, I was greedy for the shortest way. When I was escorting some supplies for my force, I rushed from the edge of your dark domain. As a result, the goods were snatched by a gang running around in the dark domain. I also managed to escape with great difficulty, and I would like to ask you how much it would cost to snatch the goods back. The opponent seemed to be a second-level monster with medium talent, and looked extremely anxious. In fact, this is the case. This monster comes from a small force not far from the dark territory. This time he escorted the external materials needed by the force back to the original force. Originally, he was going to bypass the edge of the dark territory, but in order to save some navigation energy, he was full of energy. To keep his own money, he was greedy for convenience and went to the edge of the dark realm too. As a result, the goods were really targeted. He fought hard to escape, but there was no way he could get the goods back. Your goods have been robbed. Tell me what the goods contain and what the other party's strength is so I can make an assessment. After hearing what the other party said, Jia Yan looked stunned, and then asked a little solemnly. The forces that dare to steal the goods of external forces can be strong or weak. If they encounter a terrifying existence with a high talent level of half a star, Jia Yan will have no choice but to turn around and run away. I don't know their specific strength, but when they robbed me, they only had a few sub-level ones, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to escape. As for the goods, they were just some ordinary supplies from my power. If your firm is willing to help, I am willing to pay 1/10 of the goods as a price. The monster gritted its teeth and showed a profuse bleeding expression on the other side of the video communication. In fact, the other party had already asked several large firms before this. But those offices sounded like this kind of small business, and more importantly, the incident happened on the edge of the dark territory, and the person involved was a member of an outside force, so they didn't want to help. As a result, Guanqiang was helpless this time. When he searched on the internet, he saw the advertisement posted by Jia Yan crazily. He didn't understand the distribution of dark field firms, so he thought that a firm with the strength to continuously advertise on the internet must be strong. Then came over and asked. Of course, now he also felt a little surprised, because he suddenly discovered that although the being who received him was just a flying monster like Venerable, the talent of this Venerable was at least a high-level talent. How can a firm with such genius be weak? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 978. Jia Yan did not expect that the talent he showed would actually become the standard by which the other party judged the strength of Tingtian Pavilion. He is now calculating the other party's words and assessing whether things can be done. The robbery forces, or gangs, are not too strong. Even if they have medium talents at half-star level, they should not have high-level talents at half-star level. So with my current strength, I might give it a try. Jia Yan analyzed several clues and then made a judgment. Okay, I can take this matter. You need to pay the deposit, which is 10,000 yuan. Jia Yan said this to the person on the other side of the communicator. 10,000? I paid. The monster didn't seem to understand the business style of the Dark Realm. Now he gritted his teeth and acted like a living doctor, and spent 10,000 genius yuan in one breath. Within a few seconds, Jia Yan heard a notification from Zhinao that the money had been received. He is quite cheerful. Such a good customer. Jia Yan smiled. Of course he didn't know that the other party really had no choice now. With his own strength, it was impossible to deal with the Star Thief gang. He invited other firms, and no one was willing to take advantage of this case. He had even been deceived like this before. After several times of money, now that Jia Yan's tone of voice didn't sound like a lie, he had no choice but to trust Jia Yan again. Not long after, a faint light slowly flew out of the unknown star where Jia Yan was. In the universe, this faint light quickly disappeared into the subspace and flew in a certain direction. I didn't expect it to be quite close. That dim light was none other than Jia Yan, who was wearing a concept ship. He was flying in the universe while looking at the information given by his employer. Since he has received deposits from others, Jia Yan will not break the rules. After all, he does not really do things for money. What's more, a person should pay attention to principles. The secondary level clone stayed on the star. In the last escape battle, even though the secondary level clone did not fight the semi-star existence head-on, in fact, his body was seriously injured. If it weren't for the talent of this clone, which is self-repair, maybe now they were all dead, so Jia Yan left them on the star to heal. The employer originally wanted to go to Tingtian Pavilion to meet Jia Yan in person, but Jia Yan said lightly, in order to avoid a long night and many dreams, I will work first, and you will come back later. This sentence seemed to be more responsible, but it made the employer feel cold. You must know that he had been defrauded of money several times before, and Jia Yan said he acted first, so the other people in the so-called Tingtian Pavilion can people also accept themselves? Regardless of the despair of his employer, Jia Yan entered the subspace and moved forward, and then arrived at a powerful commercial planet. Jia Yan stayed on this planet for a short period of time. He acquired some energy substances. The concept ship had little energy left, so he wanted to replenish it. As for the space stone, Jia Yan has not seen any powerful people selling it directly. Even if there is, it is absolutely impossible for him to afford it with his current financial ability, which is close to a pauper. Therefore, his condition in this battle can be said to be extremely poor. In the universe, in a star field without any stars, a dark monster body tore the space with a claw from the void, and flew out from that space. It's around here. Let me investigate first. Jia Yan looked around. The area where he was the place where his employer was robbed. Now that Jia Yan came here, he quickly started investigating. This area is the junction between the dark area and the normal area. It can be said to be the dark area, but it can also be said to be the normal area of the outside world. Jia Yan looked at the vast starry sky, and then his compound eyes flashed with something strange. Then in one step, he passed through subspace and arrived 10,000 kilometers away. In this area, the wreckage of several battleships that were destroyed and almost impossible to repair appeared here. It seems this is where the incident happened. After Jia Yan understood this, he looked at several traces of damage to the damaged battleships with a somewhat solemn expression. The appearance of this batch of battleships was extremely completely destroyed, and the strength revealed on them indicated that the attacking opponents were a group of powerful people from the second level. The only good news is that there is no aura of a half-star powerhouse in these attacks. I'm not familiar with this area, but usually in situations like this, the ones causing trouble are almost all the surrounding small forces or gangs. I'm just going to look around to see if there are any small forces here. Jia Yan spread out his body and began to search around the surrounding starry sky somewhat unskillfully. After all, Jia Yan had never done anything like this before, so Jia Yan's search was extremely difficult. It has been longer than when he came here. Jia Yan seemed to be coming and going heedlessly, making several useless efforts. He found several unmanned stars within a radius of hundreds of millions of kilometers, but after finding nothing, he almost wanted to find them. Give up. It's been almost half a month. It only took me a few days to get here. Now the search has taken several times longer. This job is really not easy. Jia Yan was a little helpless and wanted to give up, but he couldn't win over this old face. Besides, he had almost used up all his employer's genius. How could he do the job if he gave up? Just when Jia Yan was about to give up, his compound eyes suddenly moved. It turned out that in the starry sky, he saw a small warship with excellent concealment, flying quietly in the starry sky. Jia Yan's expression changed and he followed secretly. I said, Fuji, do we need to be so worried? Although the guy who was robbed by us claimed to have hired a firm to come over to help, I have never heard of Tingtianga. Maybe he hired a liar. We don't need to be so careful. Wan Ren, you don't know that people in our line of work should be careful. Even though we are making a lot of noise in the land of mirrors, this is just because we have chosen a good place, otherwise a strong man will come randomly. Anyone can take care of us. On the hidden battleship, two monsters transporting daily necessities were having a conversation. What they didn't know was that while the two monsters were conversing, a monster with dazzling metallic luster quietly came outside their battleship and listened to the conversation between the two monsters without missing a word. Haha, it took no effort at all. It seemed that this was the robbery force. Jia Yan was a little happy outside the battleship. The two geniuses in the battleship are two sub-level powerhouses, but their talents are only middle-level geniuses. This kind of strength is of course a much anticipated existence in the border star area of the genius battlefield, but when it comes to the central star area, they are just minor characters, just like the mermaid monsters Iaoa who came to the central star area with Jia Yan. They can only be Jia Yan's slaves. When Jia Yan put on the concept ship, his strength was at the second level of advanced talent. Even after adding space talent, he seemed to be more than advanced talent. When facing these two monsters, he was more than one win. So when he came to the opponent's battleship, the opponent didn't even feel it. If we can't take action now, we'd better follow them to the force headquarters and wait for an opportunity. Jia Yan's eyes flashed and he lay motionless outside the battleship. His brainwave power was faintly exuding. Although the energy of the brainwave power was only at the level of the venerable, if the surface power of the cells was also added, it was just enough to prevent the two major geniuses from discovering his existence. This battleship had no idea that a powerful genius had arrived from the outside world, but it still foolishly and cautiously headed towards a direction that Jia Yan had not yet explored. Arriving in an area more than 1 billion kilometers away, a small black star appeared in front of Jia Yan. It turned out to be here, and their hidden facilities were built extremely well. When Jia Yan saw this star, He immediately understood that this was a small group, and it was said that the forces looked too high on each other. On this star, there are some broken battleships, and some are just snatched cargo ships. The entire star exudes 7 or 8 waves of second-level geniuses. There is only one person with medium peak talent, and the rest are only ordinary middle-level talents with second-level talents. Of course, it is not so easy to encounter strong people with high-level talents. You guys are back, how are you? There weren't any accidents along the way. When this transport battleship arrives outside the star, 2 sub-level monsters came forward. Welcome words to Jia Yan, who followed the 2 great warriors in the battleship. Haha, they didn't encounter an accident just now, but now they have. Without waiting for the 2 monsters to answer, Jia Yan, who had already understood the strength of the astral body, suddenly flew out from behind the battleship. Who? Not only were the 2 major secondary level monsters that came out to greet them, but also the 2 monsters in the battleship were shocked. They had never thought that such a powerful enemy was following behind the battleship they were driving. There is an invasion by outsiders. Come to support. At the same time as Jia Yan flew out, a sub-level being had already roared towards the star below, and then charged towards Jia Yan. Are you from Tingtian Pavilion? A middle-level talent came to Jia Yan and felt that the surface of Jia Yan's concept ship exuded the aura of a high-level talent. Asked with a somewhat solemn expression. That's right. Jia Yan nodded, then regardless of what the other party wanted to say, he started directly. He has wasted enough time, now he can just deal with the other party and then directly retrieve the goods. Puff. Above the sky, the middle-level genius who spoke was speaking. Before he could say more words, his body split into 2 pieces without any warning. How? The 3 sub-level monsters on one side were about to take action, but when they saw this strange scene, they suddenly looked shocked. You must know that in this small group, the person who was killed by Jia Yan just now was the second master among them. As a result, he could not even withstand the blow of the metal monster that suddenly appeared. How strong is the opponent? And this scene also caused the 6 or 7 sub-Guan beings on the star that had just soared to become silent. They were shocked. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 979. In fact, what Jia Yan faced was the existence of ordinary combat power in the central area. In the past, Jia Yan was fighting life and death, always encountering mid-level talents or even high-level talents with half-star level, but in fact, the chance of encountering such a being is still small. It's just that he is unlucky or too good. Now that he has encountered a group of average strength sub-level experts, Jia Yan alone can even intimidate them. Escape. Among the sub-levels below the star, there was a person with a very high level of vision. At this time, he stepped back without loyalty. Even the space behind him was distorted, and there was a hint of entering the subspace. Of course, in front of the truly strong subspace talent, this ability to use space talent to accelerate is simply insignificant. The next second he escaped, the space behind him split open, and a front foot pierced him like a sharp arrow. This subdimensional being never imagined that he would encounter a being whose space talent was much higher than his own. Now he was hit hard and was unable to move. This was the reason why Jia Yan made an impromptu decision and did not kill him. He had a brilliant idea. If you don't want to die, don't run away. I won't kill you. Jia Yan said lightly. Well. A group of moderately talented sub-level experts who were just trying to escape suddenly looked at Jia Yan, who had arrived on the astral ground at some point. After they saw Jia Yan's space talent, they understood that even if some of them could escape, the number would definitely not be large. It would be good if one of the 10 monsters could escape. The greater possibility is that the entire army will be annihilated under the pursuit of this metal crow. What is your group called? Jia Yan looked at the space talent Ci Guan Tian who was lying on the ground unable to move, and then asked a question in a sinister voice. Returning to the adults of Tingtian Pavilion, we don't have a name. At the beginning, a group of strong people from the second level who didn't do well in the Dark Realm gathered together and came here to live a life. A strong man from the second pass quickly responded respectfully to Jia Yan. Very well, then tell me what I should do with you now. Jia Yan smiled, then turned his head and looked at a Sigwunkan trying to escape. The guy was stared at by Jia Yan, and his whole body froze, as if he had been seen by a prehistoric beast. You must know that Jia Yan has fought with a moderately talented semi-star level powerhouse before. His momentum has been tempered in that level of battle. For an ordinary second-level powerhouse, even if it is not as good as a moderately talented and semi-star strong person, but there is not much difference. So this glance made the second-level genius who wanted to escape was so stunned that he almost thought he was going to die. Fortunately, Jia Yan did not launch an attack. Sir, we are willing to serve you. It doesn't matter whether you are a cow or a horse. After seeing Jia Yan's expression, a genius from Guan dynasty, who had a quick mind, hurriedly said the words of loyalty. Because he understands very well that on this planet, there is nothing good, not even a good thing, let alone what the other party wants, just kill them and get it yourself. If we don't kill them now, of course it's for their own sake. Yes, sir, we are willing to do our best for you. There were several sub-level monsters around, and his brain was pretty good, so he quickly made such remarks. Jia Yan nodded. Then you will help me drive the cargo ship first and return to Tingtian Pavilion. Yes. In just one meal, 7 or 8 cargo spacecrafts were seen taking off from this small star. As for those lagging single-man battleships, Jia Yan ordered these strong men not to take them with them. In order to save his life, of course what Jia Yan said was what everyone else listened to. I just heard that Tianj is short of manpower. Of course, I killed one of their comrades. They can't be loyal to me, but I only need their help now and I can kill anyone who finds something wrong in the future. Jia Yan had a good idea, which was to bring this group of people under his control first, and then kill anyone who dared to cause trouble or rebel in the future. Even if 1 or 2 of them escaped, Jia Yan didn't care. Originally, Jia Yan didn't like this kind of thing. This improvised small caravan was an excellent prey at the edge of the Dark Realm. Some small groups were like sharks smelling fishy smell, running over one by one and attacking them. But the attacks along the way made the group of prisoners who had been conquered by Jia Yan feel a little frightened when they saw Jia Yan's strength. This is not a second-level genius. I think a mid-level talent with a half-star level can't be much better than him. It seems that there were more than 30 middle-level talent second-level experts attacking us just now, right? We were actually killed by Master Mok. No scrap of armor was left, no one escaped. Yes, Lord Mok is too scary. Fortunately, we didn't want to escape. Otherwise, the end would not be much better. Jia Yan and this small caravan moved forward, and the carnage caused on the road made almost all the small groups who heard it stunned. Along the way, 7 groups, with a total of about 100 sub-level monsters, died under the claws of Jia Yan's concept ship. It's scary. Judging from Tianj's reputation, I think it will spread soon in this border area. When a group of monsters followed Jia Yan to transport goods, they went from frightened to indifferent, and then from indifferent to seeing Jia Yan's victory as a matter of course. After more than half a month of flight, they finally arrived at Jia Yan's building. Tingtian Pavilion's headquarters is outside the star. We are here. This pavilion has just been established. You can find a place to build your own house. Jia Yan ordered the strong man to be imprisoned many times to build a house on his flat star, and then he flew back to the built stone house. The monsters from the second level who were forcibly pulled from behind were all stunned. They originally thought that since Jia Yan even wanted enemies like them, Tingtian Pavilion must be short of people in Tingtian Pavilion. However, they did not expect that when they arrived outside Tingtian Pavilion, they realized that the truth was not only short of people, but no one at all. Well, let's make peace with what we have come. I feel that in the room that Lord Mok entered, there seems to be a strong person at the second level who is not weak. Maybe he is also a high-level talented person at the second level. With these two, with the adults here, we might be able to get along better than before. That's right, it's already a great favor that you don't kill us. Now, we should say that it might be our chance. The more primitive a force we are, the higher our status will be. Everyone must be loyal. Jia Yan heard the discussion of several monsters from a distance, and nodded with some satisfaction. Of course, he also understood that these monsters deliberately told him, after all, if they used the power of brain waves to transmit sounds, he couldn't hear it even if he didn't want Jia Yan to hear it. This is not the first time Jia Yan has done this to build a power, so even if he doesn't know much about management, he is familiar with it and can do some things well. Okay, I have already notified the first client of this force to come over. When he arrives, don't scare them too much, and apologize properly. I'm sure they will forgive you. Even if they don't, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the work is done. Jia Yan calmly summoned several major levels of existence together. At the same time, his secondary level clones also appeared in front of a group of monsters and introduced them to everyone. When they saw that in addition to Jia Yan, this Tingtian Pavilion actually had a high-level genius, the monsters who had no confidence in Tingtian Pavilion finally gained a little more confidence. You must know that at the edge of this dark area, the power of highly talented sub-level experts is already very powerful, because it is almost impossible for semi-star experts to come to such a rural place to hang out. Next, the prisoners who were captured by Jia Yan to act as fronts, beyond Jia Yan's expectation, all became energetic and took care of the entire planet. In fact, it is not an exaggeration to say that the strength of the strong people in the second level has changed the world. After all, it is only half a star, only one level lower. Especially when 10 strong people in the second level with medium talents act together, it is better than Jia Yan alone. Transforming stars is many times faster. Sir, our previous star body was for concealment, so we didn't dare to transform it into something beautiful. Now, of course, the forces of Tingtian Pavilion cannot do this. This is the facade of our Tingtian Pavilion. If you want to make it, be better. Yes, we understand the artistic conception you mentioned, sir. Now we will make it according to that artistic conception. A group of talented people created a strange stone scenery according to the Chinese garden scenery envisioned by Jia Yan. The strong Chinese style also made Jia Yan extremely satisfied. Although it was a little rough overall, it was full of unique artistic conception because of the style. Amidst the ongoing renovation and construction, Tingtian Pavilion's first employer finally arrived. This is the headquarters of Tingtian Pavilion that I hired before. A strong man from the second pass rode a rented warship to the small star named Tingtian Star by Jia Yan. The current look of Tingtian Pavilion is no longer the look that Jia Yan made casually before. Although it doesn't look like it cost much or is not meticulously crafted, it still has some appearance, especially at the edge of the Dark Realm, most of which, even if the forces have the energy, they would not dare to make the landing star look too beautiful to expose the place where they are located. Such a star can be said to be outstanding. And this employer, in a strange state of mind, came to the outside of the star. This friend, I wonder why you came to Tingtian Pavilion. A second-level genius that Jia Yan had just conquered flew to the front of the ship, and then asked respectfully. In fact, he asked this question in a pretense. Everyone knew that the person who would come to Tingtian Pavilion now would only be the second-level genius they had robbed before them. "Hello, I am the employer who hired you Tingtianga before. I paid the deposit." The coming second-level monster seemed familiar to the polite greeter in front of him, but for a moment, he couldn't remember it at all. "Thanks to book friend Look 000 for the tip. Thanks Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 980. The monster at that level showed the call records on the brain, as well as a small mosquito pattern that Jia Yan had previously sent to the strong man. "It turns out to be a guest, please go this way." That time, the monster Guan Yingbin quickly showed a professional smile, and then greeted the first employer outside the ancient servant stone house where Jia Yan was located. On the door of the stone house, there are several Chinese characters engraved, Tingtian Pavilion. What an interesting text. Although he didn't take much notice of the surrounding buildings, after seeing the characters on the building, the monster who came over suddenly had another feeling. After all, Chinese characters are a kind of elegance and ancient meaning, and in the eyes of alien creatures, which is also very delicious. After entering the stone house, the monster saw a main hall. Above the main hall, a metallic life with the appearance of a flying creature stared at him silently. As soon as he saw this monster, the strong man in the secondary level felt uncomfortable for a while. Although the opponent seemed to be just a second-level powerhouse, as a being who had grown up in fighting, he certainly understood that the opponent was much stronger than him. "I have met this friend from Tingtian Pavilion." The monster in the second level quickly and respectfully saluted the monster above. At the same time, he looked around the monster from the first level and was shocked again. It turned out that beside the flying monster, there was another second level whose strength completely exceeded his. These two monsters turned out to be highly gifted beings. There was something drumming in his heart, almost a hint of fear. As for the existence of advanced talents, as a genius among the general outside forces, he is more afraid of the creatures in the dark realm. "Okay, you don't need to be too polite. You are our employer." The metal bird monster above nodded lightly, seeming to be very majestic and telling it not to be nervous. And the feeling of speaking like this made the other party even more nervous. "I wonder, my friend, has the task I entrusted been completed?" Although the monster below is a little nervous, he will not forget the business. In fact, when he came to Tingtian Pavilion today, he was completely surprised. After announcing the mission to Tingtian Pavilion before, there was no news from the other party. He thought that his 10,000 genius yuan was wasted again, but unexpectedly, after some time passed, the other party actually sent a message directly, saying that the task was completed. Even before he descended to the ground, he saw the shadow of one of his cargo ships high in the sky. "Of course, come with me now and take a look." The metal monster led the opponent's actions, and after leaving the stone house, he went to the outside world where the warships were parked. "It's indeed my cargo ship, thank you, thank you." When the second-level monster saw the cargo ship, the joy in his heart could no longer be concealed, and he almost cried with joy. "You're welcome, it's just our duty. Now you calculate the payment, and if some of the things I requested are ready, we can deliver the goods." The metal bird monster in Tingtian Pavilion was naturally Jia Yan, who was wearing a concept ship. At this time, he spoke to the other party in Yanyan and showed off his style. The other party was also infected by him and was a little afraid of Tingtian Pavilion. After that, he could be considered to have achieved his goal. After a round of delivery, the other party even offered some of the supplies Jia Yan had requested before. For example, a space stone, plus part of the payment. Although the space stone is relatively rare, it is not so difficult for powerful people from the outside world to obtain. If the other party loses the goods, they may not even be able to save their lives. For a space stone plus part of the payment, they will naturally be willing to pay. Not long after, a series of cargo ships flew up on the Tingtianga planet. It turns out that the series of cargo ships are actually linked, and one monster can barely operate them. On this string of cargo ships, the first employer of Tingtian Pavilion was muttering to himself with some emotion inside the cargo ship. This Tingtian Pavilion is completely different from what is said on the internet. It is so fake. It is simply much better than many firms I have seen. The employer thought of the series of doubts and ridicules he had received when he asked others about Tingtianga on the internet. Even he himself felt that what others on the internet said was right, so he sent it again. 10,000 genius yuan is given to Tingtian Pavilion. As a result, he scolded Tingtianga together with others, and he suddenly felt very sorry in his heart. He went online, found his own posts on the internet and criticized Tingtianga, and dug out his refutations one by one. Assholes, it's you who made me almost curse my benefactor. Tingtianga has helped me get things done today without any overlord clauses, and he is very powerful. Where is the leather company you are talking about? All of them are bastards. You are the incompetent colleagues. I hereby guarantee that Tingtian Pavilion is absolutely reputable. Only after he had finished replying to all the posts and even exchanged scoldings with a group of guys who had scolded Tingtian Pavilion for a while did this second-level powerhouse finally stop. By doing this, I can repay Tingtian Pavilion a little bit. Okay, now I will go back. Hey, it seems like something was wrong before. I vaguely know some of the monsters who received me. Well, where have I seen them before? After thinking for a long time, the monster's expression was startled, and then his expression became strange. It turns out that monster was the guy who fought me head-on, and there were a few others who were also part of the robbers. This employer thought for a long time in astonishment. He couldn't understand what was going on. Of course, after thinking about it for a long time, he still smiled helplessly and stopped causing trouble. Tingtian Pavilion's two high-level talents are the second-level geniuses. If they want to take revenge on him, they will die in one sneak attack in his own force, so let's forget it. Although he felt that there was something hidden in Tingtian Pavilion, he did not modify the post he had made before scolding others. He just accepted it as a mute-eating yellow lotus. On the Tingtian Pavilion side, Jia Yan was his first employer, and he couldn't even recognize his previous enemies, which was a bit funny. It makes sense. The other party would never have thought that when he came to the force he hired, the people serving around him were all those who had robbed him before. Jia Yan smiled and shook his head, then turned on the internet. Seeing that the employer still looked loyal and scolded Tingtianga desperately for them, which made Tingtianga's reputation even greater, and he suddenly felt happy again. With that in mind, the communication came. Tingtian Pavilion, right? I want to ask you to carry out a security mission. Another business has arrived, and the correspondence has continued. It seems that the post has had an excellent effect. Jia Yan established the Tingtian office as usual, and it was also a small group close to the power. He didn't know that the disciple group, which had made a big fuss before, still valued his movements very much. According to reliable information, Tingtian Pavilion is probably the one who invaded my carnival planet before. After offending our disciples, they still dare to appear in the public eye in such a big way. It is simply not good for our disciples. Mingtuan takes it seriously. However, the opponent's strength should not be underestimated. Even a mid-level talent with a half-star level cannot keep him. Even if he joins forces with another high-level talent with a secondary talent, he is still vaguely able to fight against a mid-level talent with a half-star level. This is definitely not the case. An ordinary high-end gifted genius. Several stars existed, discussing something solemnly on top of a dark star. That okay, we don't have to deal with it, but we are afraid that if the opponent becomes stronger again, he will turn around and deal with our disciples. You must know that such a genius can be half as powerful as a high-level genius with just one casual step. There is a countervailing force on the stellar level. But we can't guarantee that he will still hold a grudge. Of course, if there is a chance to kill him, it is better to avoid future troubles. Then as an employer, we will test him. Sir, we heard that Tianj's affairs have suddenly increased recently. But the manpower is really insufficient. I see that the two highly gifted adults often act together. I suggest, the two adults should look after a fleet separately. For example, for the next 2 escort missions, if the two adults go separately, there is no need to keep the employer waiting. Listening to the stars above, a sub-conservator loyally put forward his own opinions. This sub-level being was one of the strong people from the sub-level that Jia Yan had forcibly brought to Tingtianxing. Perhaps he saw that hanging out on Tingtianxing was much more nourishing than they were as small bandits before. Now this most of the group of strong people from the secondary level were actually much more obedient, and the number of times they put forward their opinions like today has increased. Of course, Tingtian Pavilion's charges are reasonable, and there are 2 high-level talented sub-level experts. Some people who don't know if they are causing trouble actually found the Moke, which was the one who caused a big fuss in the disciple group's carnival star. After that, no one would question the strength of the entire Tingtian Pavilion. You know, Mok may be a powerful existence that can rival the average talent of half a star. This kind of being can usually serve as a high-level person in a certain force without having to do any work at all, but Mok came to do it, and his service attitude was excellent. And for a person whose strength is almost equivalent to a medium-level talent and a half-star level, what else is there that he can't solve? Originally, the monsters in trouble at the border would not be serious problems. Even if there was something that Tingtian Pavilion could not deal with, Jia Yan and the others would simply refuse it. The result of this is that Tingtian Pavilion's reputation is growing day by day. Even if some colleagues want to discredit it, they dare not say anything against a force that has a strength that is almost equivalent to a medium-level talent and half a star. We will not act separately. The specific reasons are secret. In Tingtian Pavilion, after Jia Yan listened to his subordinate's words, he shook his head neatly in response. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 981. Some people in Tingtian Pavilion vaguely saw the relationship between Jia Yan and his clone, but they didn't think that the relationship between the two parties was that of the real body and the clone. They just thought that the clone was interested in Jia Yan. A kind of existence like a guard. For mobile reading, please visit. But this is a waste of strength and resources, so that if there are any escort and combat tasks, they cannot be carried out on both sides. Because in this border area, the level of combat missions is not high, and a highly talented secondary pass expert can definitely take charge of one side, so they don't quite understand why Jia Yan doesn't perform the mission separately from his clone. But only Jia Yan himself understands that the connection between him and his clone is only through the brainwave method of the so-called brain-eating monster. The disadvantage of this method of connection is that it cannot be too far apart. Therefore, it is impossible for him to be too far away from his clone, and thus unable to perform 2 tasks at the same time. Seeing that Jia Yan did not agree and did not tell what the secret was, the monster below reluctantly retreated. This group of guys have gradually developed a sense of belonging to Tingtian Pavilion like me. This is really. In the stone house, Jia Yan looked at the guy who was leaving strangely. The words he said for the future of his power didn't seem to be fake. Not only him, but also several other sub-level beings who were forcibly brought to Tingtianxing by Jia Yan now have a sense of belonging to Tingtian Pavilion, which Jia Yan can't understand. Because he has never been a down-and-out genius, he simply cannot understand that when he came to the Central Star region, a monster who could not be valued by forces and had no financial resources, now gained the favor of a force and let go of his previous grievances. In short, Jia Yan is satisfied if his subordinates don't cause trouble. Besides, Tingtian Pavilion is just a work of his travel practice. Just after talking to his subordinates, Jia Yan received a communication request. Phineas. Jia Yan saw the number in the communication request and knew who it was. There has been no news from Phinia since she escaped with Jia Yan that day. Of course, although Jia Yan saved her life in disguise, he never thought about wanting repayment from the other party. People who think about these things in the universe are either fools or too naive, and these two kinds of existences are Jia Yan will naturally not be one of them if he doesn't live long. Lord Moke, we meet again. Jia Yan picked up the communication, and on the opposite side of the communication, the small-headed former bartender spy monster Phinia appeared on the screen. Hello, Your Excellency Phinia. Jia Yan nodded politely. Your Excellency MOK, I won't say any more gossip. Our forces have a big mission. I don't know if you are willing to accept it? Phinia didn't say much to Jia Yan, and spoke concisely and directly. This is also the normal state of dialogue between real monsters in the universe. You must know that time is very precious for strong people. Phinia, if you know more about it, you will know that the force I am creating now has many tasks, so if your task is not very special, I may not have time to take over. Jia Yan did not drag his feet, but spoke with a hint of rejection. What he meant was that if the other party didn't make much money from the mission, they might not accept the mission. Lord Mok, I have seen the topics you caused on the internet. The name of the firm you established is Tingtian Pavilion. However, I see that although the number of tasks you have accepted is large, the actual quality of the tasks is not. It's not that high, but the money you make, if I'm honest, it's not as much as what you would make if you were a high-ranking member of a certain force. Someone pointed out his weakness, and Jia Yan looked depressed and embarrassed. In fact, he also discovered before that, except for the first business, they directly extracted a certain amount of goods from the goods as commission, but the tasks they took on, such as guarding, were not profitable at all. Even if they encountered a battle, they would only make money. There will be some rewards, which are insignificant at all. For someone like Jia Yan who is used to large resources, the money is not enough for Jia Yan to buy energy for the concept ship. This is the current status of the existence of the bottom forces. Phinia could naturally see Jia Yan's embarrassment. She didn't hang up the communication just to make Jia Yan look bad, she just accepted the words. Master Moke, the reward for our mission this time is your favorite space stone. Don't ask me why I know you like space stones, because judging from the few missions you have taken before, you don't even need the hard currency genius UN, you like them all. The space stone is even willing to offset the mission funds at a higher price than the market price, so I understand that you need the space stone. A space stone. After hearing the other party's words and explanation, Jia Yanfu's eyes flashed. It turned out that the other party had conducted so many investigations on him before hanging up the communication. Tell me what the mission is and how many space stones you are willing to give. The sparkle in Jia Yanfu's eyes kept flashing, as if he was weighing. The mission is not too complicated, but it is a bit dangerous. It is to ambush a fleet of a certain disciple group who is out purchasing. After the task is completed, you can choose half of the items. As for the space stones, our force is also willing to give you 20. How about space stones as payment? Another mission related to the disciples? Jia Yan's compound eyes kept flashing. He was thinking whether this could be a trap. You must know that he and the disciple group had some disputes, and even killed a powerful person in their force, which also cost the other party a lot of face. No, this Phinia was an undercover agent in the disciples group before. It must be because there was a gap between her force and the disciples. Otherwise, we wouldn't have sent an undercover agent. After Jia Yan thought for a while, his eyes became filled with surprises. He moved his mouth, and then said calmly, I need 30 space stones, and before I go, you must give me 10 as a deposit. 30? Yes, 10 space stones can be used as a deposit. As long as Mr. Jia Yan is willing to take action. To Jia Yan's expectation, when he stated his request, the other party readily agreed. If I had known earlier, I would have said more. Jia Yan regretted a little, but the words had been spoken and there was nothing to regret. It has to be said that Phinea's movements were extremely fast. 3 days after he made the request, a small fleet arrived at Tingtian Pavilion where Jia Yan was located. "Sir Mok, here is the deposit for your mission." A petite sub-level monster jumped out of the fleet. It was Phinia. She handed a beautifully packaged small box to Jia Yan, and the ripples of space inside the small box seemed to be related to space. Jia Yan's calm brainwave power caused the small box to fly in front of the second-level clone, and then the clone stepped forward and opened the box. Yes, Jia Yan is still a little wary of Phinia. Fortunately, the clone opened the box. Inside was the space stone that Jia Yan was very familiar with, and the 10 stones were all good in size and of high quality. "Very well, Your Excellency Phinia, let's discuss what kind of mission it is." Jia Yan smiled and invited Phinia, who was watching all around, to enter the stone house. "Tingtian Pavilion? This font is quite good." With some artistic conception, Phinia was a little surprised when she saw the Chinese characters on the door of the stone house. Jia Yan explained a few words casually, and then entered the stone house with the other party. "Lord Mok, the name of our force is the Red-Pink Force. Most of the people in the force are female creatures. We had some troubles with the disciples before, but our force is too weak. If it weren't for some of our sisters marrying well, a group of outsiders the forces support us, maybe the disciples will have destroyed my pink forces long ago. And this time, our forces came to invite you to take action because we heard that the disciples seem to have acquired a batch of extremely useful energy. We intend to rob it, but we may not be able to succeed due to our strength." Phinia briefly introduced her force and her relationship with the disciples, and then looked at Jia Yan, as if expecting the decision he would make. "Is that so? I am willing to accept the task." Jia Yan didn't think for too long. In fact, the batch of space stones he got in his hands could no longer be thrown away. With these 10 space stones in hand, he can start working on one of his ideas. Therefore, it is impossible for Jia Yan to refuse this invitation. "Really? Then I wish us a happy cooperation this time." After listening to Jia Yan's words, Phinia with a hint of surprise in her eyes, and then stood up, as if she was eager to report the good news to the superiors. Jia Yan did not keep her. "This mission may be a little dangerous, but now I have 10 space stones in my hand. I can't refuse." The sparkle in Jia Yan's eyes flickered even more. Not long after, he stopped worrying about the interception mission. He knelt down on the ground, took out a few space stones, and began to arrange them one by one. It turns out that there are nearly 20 new space stones in front of Jia Yan. These are the results of Jia Yan's recent efforts. Of course, the bulk of them are the 10 sent by Phinia. My space stones have long been exhausted, and now this batch can help me stabilize the artificial black hole a little. However, this black hole, after all, is my first attempt at it. It is already unstable. It may collapse soon. At most, it will not be used a few times. In that case, a flash of madness appeared in Jia Yan's eyes, and then the space stones in front of him flew up one by one, disappeared directly in the visible space, and entered the subspace. A few minutes later, Jia Yan stood up and entered the subspace himself. All the creatures in Tingtian Pavilion faintly heard the loud earthquakes erupting from the space itself on this day. And Phinia, who lived in Tingtian Pavilion, kept flashing her eyes, looking around for something. She could also guess that it was Jia Yan who made the noise, but the difference in strength between her and Jia Yan was so great that she couldn't figure out what Jia Yan was up to. "Mok, your strength is indeed terrifying." Looking at the space around the guest room, Phinia's eyes were shining, and she didn't know what she was thinking. 29/29818 Read novels anytime, anywhere. Please use your mobile phone to access. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 982. In the starry sky of the universe, a material fleet of the Disciple Regiment was slowly flying among them. What happened on Carnival Planet last time was so big that many guests died. It has recently affected the number of customers on Carnival Planet. It is really too much. Haha, I also heard that the troublemaker is now taking root at the edge of the dark territory not far from us. Our disciples clearly know that he is here, but they dare not come to take revenge. I don't know what the higher UPS are thinking. Maybe the other party is too strong. How is it possible? I heard that they are only 2 sub-levels. Together, they can fight to a draw with the half-star master. But do our disciples have more than 1.5-star master? Just 2 of them can destroy them. They're not sure either. In the supply ship of the Disciple Regiment, 2 sub-containers were chatting, and the content of the conversation was surprisingly related to Jia Yan. In short, no matter what, his affairs are beyond the control of ordinary sub-levels like us. Forget it. The 2 sub-level beings may not know that the moke that gives them a headache is actually in a starry sky not far away from them, watching the actions of this fleet from a distance through a pre-buried detector. Jia Yan is on a large battleship, surrounded by a female monster of a higher level. Unfortunately, Jia Yan doesn't like females among cosmic creatures. Otherwise, he would definitely feel very happy. He had just arrived here not long ago. Obviously, the so-called pink forces have arranged a lot of back UPS here, and even long-distance detectors have been arranged. Just after he watched the slow-moving supply fleet of the desperate regiment through a huge screen for a few minutes, Phineas' voice came from behind. Lord Moke, our half-star lord from the red-pink force is here. Oh. I'll go over to greet the senior. Jia Yan and Phineas moved together and arrived at the hatch of the huge battleship. Then he saw a flying one-man battleship. On this one-man battleship, there are several auras of powerful people, and there is also an aura of a semi-star existence. That person is a half-star senior of our pink power. After the several geniuses on the battleship got off the battleship, Phineas introduced the one with the most terrifying strength among them to Jia Yan. Jia Yan looked at her and nodded. The opponent was a half-star strong man with medium talent, but Jia Yan felt that he seemed to be much weaker than the dinosaur monster of the Disciple Corps that he had fought. Your Excellency MOK, on behalf of the Pink Power, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to you for accepting our invitation. After the half-star female monster flew in front of Jia Yan, she greeted Jia Yan as if she were an equal. Of course, it is not strange for this half-star powerhouse to behave like this. You must know that Jia Yan and the clone behind him teamed up to cause chaos on the Carnival Star of the Disciple Group. You must know that it is one of the bases of the Disciple Group. Jia Yan, a sub-level existence, was able to escape unscathed after making a big fuss there, which can be said to be a very amazing achievement. And this female monster has naturally heard what Phineas saw with her own eyes, and understands that Jia Yan's strength is not much different from the average mid-level half-star genius, so she will naturally treat him politely at this time. Senior, you don't have to be polite. I have some issues with the disciples, otherwise I would never dare to provoke such a big force. Jia Yan was polite to Cheng. After a few pleasantries, the 2 sides got down to business. Then, Mr. Moke, you have also seen the Disciple Regiment's supply ship with your own eyes. What do you think we should do? Should we attack them head-on, or ambush them along their route? That female monster seems to have inherited the characteristics of many female monsters in the universe, that is, she does not have too much subjectivity in her actions. Since she recognizes Jia Yan, she feels a little dependent on him. For an ambush battle, I have seen the route in front of this fleet, and there is no good location. Moreover, if we cannot attack in 3 days, they will enter the sphere of influence of the abandoned regiment. Even if we attack by then, reinforcements will arrive soon, and things will change. Jia Yan gave his own analysis. So we're going to attack in 3 days. Yes, I have thought about it. It would be best to start tomorrow. After all, the closer we get to their lair, the more dangerous we are. However, this requires the approval of your forces. I am just an auxiliary who accepts the task. When Jia Yan expressed his opinion, the female half-star monster hesitated and asked Jia Yan to wait. She seemed to be going to report something to someone. She stayed in her battleship for a long time before flying out. Your Excellency Jia Yan, we agree, let's start tomorrow. Jia Yan shook his head. No wonder there were not many powerful female monsters in the universe. It turned out to be the reason for their indecisiveness. After receiving orders from their superiors, the entire fleet took action. Most of them are female and have little interest in fighting. Jia Yan even saw a few female monsters from the sub-office. During the rest time, they came to the edge of the battleship and vomited loudly. This was all nervous. Of course, Jia Yan didn't think much about making fun of them, but he was a little emotional. It turns out that among the strong men in the universe, there are also some who are war-weary. It turns out that he thought that the strong men who could reach this point, whether they are male or female, are extremely bellicose. Time flies by in the blink of an eye. Sir MOK, let's set off. At the appointed time, the half-star genius from the Red-Pink Force came outside the battleship where Jia Yan was located, waiting for Jia Yan to appear. As the only strongest male in the entire fleet, Jia Yan was actually vaguely dependent on the females in the entire fleet. Even the half-star female monster has a similar feeling. She is a butterfly-like creature with colorful wings. While waiting for Jia Yan, his wings flapped and looked a little glorious. Senior, please wait. Jia Yan flew out of the battleship with his clone, and then looked around. It turned out that the battleships in this battle were divided into 2 offensive formations. One was a team composed of strong men, and Jia Yan was also among them. This team did not have the help of battleships, but used physical combat. The other side is the remote assistance of battleships. Their pilots are sub-level world supreme geniuses. Of course, they are not strong enough to have much performance. The strongest person in the opponent's supply fleet is a half-star with moderate talent. If I join forces with you and your partners, we should be able to suppress or even kill him, and the remaining opponents will be defeated without a fight. The half-star female monster made her own battle plan for Jia Yan. When Jia Yan heard this, he smiled bitterly and shook his head. It's not that he doesn't agree with the other party's arrangement, but Jia Yan thinks that this arrangement is too naive, or even a bit too childish. Please Sir MOK, please help my force win this battle, and let my husband, no, let the world see that my pink force is also capable of fighting. The half-star female monster spoke her mind, which made Jia Yan smile helplessly. It turns out that what the opponent was doing was to make some males think highly of him. This time, their strength is a bit unreliable, but no matter what, if there is any accident in the battle situation, I will at least be sure of escape. Jia Yan thought lightly, especially about the backup plan he arranged after receiving 10 space stones from Phenia. With this backup plan, he believed that even if there was a terrible accident, there are also coping costs. As for what this backhand is, no one knows except Jia Yan. Hundreds of millions of kilometers away, a small supply fleet was flying slowly. Although this material fleet is relatively small, in fact almost no one dares to take advantage of this fleet, because above this fleet, there is a terrifying brainwave power that spreads out in the universe, and this force can be felt from a distance. The bandits with the power of brainwaves did not dare to step forward. Because this brainwave power belongs to a moderately gifted and semi-star genius. On the battleship in the center of the supply fleet, a white monster was breathing softly. There was even a bit of icy cold water in his mouth, slowly squirming in the vacuum. At a certain moment, he slightly raised his head. He looked far away in a direction outside the battleship, and then let out a faint chuckle. Your Excellency Jiayan. Our speed is 3 times faster than the opponent's. The battle is expected to occur at the 2581 Starry Sky. In the Pink Force Fleet, Jiayan was in the same place with the half-star female monster. He was contemplating the whole thing while watching the battle situation. Jiayan vaguely felt that something was not quite right. But when I thought about it for a moment, I couldn't figure out what was wrong. In this way, we can eliminate them in one fell swoop at 5291 Starry Sky Point and at least achieve the effect of killing 80% of their members. The half-star hammer monster became more and more confident in his words, as if victory was right in front of him. Your Excellency MOK, what do you think of this arrangement? She suddenly asked Jiayan. Oh, that's right. Your Excellency Su Minfu, I want to wait at the combat post first, so I'll excuse you now. After Jiayan said this, he walked directly towards the war analysis room. Who is this? Other males from the dark domain are eager to chat with us. This MOK is so unlike a male. A sub-level monster in the tactical analysis room looked at Jiayan's back with some annoyance, and the sisters quietly compared and spoke. Farewell, Your Excellency. Jiayan must have such a personality. He may be of great help to us in the battle later, and he will not even be less effective than me. You should all be respectful to him. The female half-star monster, he quickly shouted at his subordinates, asking them to be respectful to Jiayan. As the strongest person in the entire Pink Fleet, she has the best feeling for Jiayan's strength. Even if she doesn't think Jiayan can really compete with her, she definitely thinks that Jiayan can withstand a mid-level talent. A stellar genius can escape no matter what happens. This is already an extremely terrifying strength for a sub-level monster. What exactly is wrong? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 983. What exactly is wrong? Jiayan left the Red-Pink Force battleship analysis room, and then walked away with some doubts, while muttering to himself. For Jiayan, this commission was one that he was eager to do. After all, the disciples were his biggest enemies and had had some troubles before. Jiayan originally wanted to make trouble for the opponent after his strength improved a little. But he didn't expect that now that there was a pink power, he would happen to cause trouble for the disciples. Naturally, he wanted it. However, when analyzing the battle situation before, Jiayan always felt that something was wrong. Now as he walked, he looked at the fleet around him. This red-pink fleet, regardless of the combat power of the female monsters on it, is an extremely advanced fleet. Just looking at the battleships, it seems that because of the profound background of the pink power, there is no shortage of fleets and funds. As a result, there are so many technologically advanced things, and the warships are also very scary. If we just talk about battleships, there may not be any fleet in the entire battleship fleet that can compare with this fleet. Of course, considering the current scale, the Pink Forces are said to have few such fleets. Jiayan came to the bridge and looked at the entire starry sky below, waiting for the next battle. No. Jiayan was suddenly startled. He thought about it again, and finally understood that something was vaguely wrong. Since the pink power is so powerful, and there are many males from many forces who praise them so much, why did you invite me, a person from an outside agency, in this battle? Instead of inviting those male monsters to come and help. Jiayan finally discovered that something was wrong. This was dismissed by the half-star female monster Su Minfu in just a few words on the pretext of let the male genders no longer look down on their pink power. Jiayan has never noticed this. But now that I think about it, there are big flaws. Think about it, some of the male monsters who are very fond of this group of pink forces even have their spouses in the fleet at this time. How could they not be worried about their spouses? No matter how much I say it, I will protect it secretly. But now Jia Yan discovered that, at least in his own observation, no monster appeared within his observation distance at all. Why is this happening? Jia Yan's compound eyes lit up, and even the clone behind him stood up and looked left and right. So many questions. The Pink Force battleship group is getting closer and closer to the supply ship of the Disciple Force. In the Red Pink Force fleet, there was a being covered in metallic luster. He was standing in the direction of the bridge with a strange look on his face. He formed a small team with several high-ranking Red Pink Force officials, waiting to be dispatched. Your Excellency Moke, this is the specific mission arrangement. Now that we are ready to dispatch, our isolation detection equipment must have reached its limit. They will discover our fleet soon. The red-pink half-star monster Su Minfu spoke in a flattering manner next to Jia Yan. Okay, Jia Yan nodded. However, in a place where all the red-pink forces were unaware, a strange spirit flashed across Jia Yan's eyes. The clone behind him was like a dogskin plaster stuck to the back of his body, not leaving at all. The battleships were getting closer and closer, when the battleship groups on both sides were only less than 10,000 kilometers apart. Okay, it's time for us to take action. Su Minfu said something to Jia Yan, and then flew out of the battleship. Jia Yan nodded and flew up together. Behind him was a second-level pink power genius. Accompanied by two masters, they also flew out of the bridge extremely quickly. A group of monsters flew up together, and then the splendor in Jia Yan's eyes became even brighter. A distance of 10,000 kilometers, for the battleship, is no different than being close at hand. Just after their group of monsters flew out of the battleship, the other party suddenly noticed the movement here. It seemed as if the battleship over there was suddenly shaken greatly, and the whole ship was in a state of panic. As for the Pink Force fleet, they had already made preparations. The huge battleship in front fired a burst of hot flames and cannon fire at the opponent's battleship group. This main gunfire was like the opening salvo of the Red Pink Force's salvo of thousands of artillery fire. In an instant, countless rounds of artillery fire burst out at the same moment. In terms of intensity, this scene is definitely the most intense fleet battle that Jia Yan has seen recently. Okay, Lord Moke, our fleet has suppressed their fleet. As long as our strong team approaches them, the battle will be as previewed, and we will win. Seeing the explosion of artillery fire in the distant Disciple fleet, the two transport ships instantly erupted into a ball of flames. Among the strong team here, Su Minfu was almost overjoyed. Well, the battle situation is in our favor, and Master Su Minfu's plan is indeed good. Jia Yan nodded. After that, his speed seemed to change slightly. Surrounded by red and pink power monsters, they flew together around the two powerful men. As soon as Jia Yan's speed changed, he suddenly became a little eye-catching. Your Excellency Mok, hurry up, we need to speed up and rush to the other side's fleet. The military situation cannot be delayed. Su Minfu looked at Jia Yan behind with some surprise, and then urged angrily. Yeah. It's time to rush over. Jia Yan responded with a smile while flying. The speed did speed up, but he actually flew further and further to the side, and then he wanted to break away from this strong team surrounded by a group of female sub-level monsters. Lord Mok, what are you doing? Are you afraid of the battle? Yu Tingtian Pavilion has a good reputation. How could you slow down the team at such a juncture? Seeing Jia Yan flying farther and farther, almost reaching the edge of being surrounded by strong men from the second pass, Su Minfu's expression condensed, and then she asked angrily. He, what a big deal, you guys are really awesome. Very awesome. Jia Yan smiled, and then together with his clone, a twisted space appeared behind his body. He saw that these two sub-level talents were about to step into the subspace. In the subspace, with Jia Yan's talent, even if he is half a star with high talent, it will be difficult to keep him if he is not doing well. But why does Jia Yan speak like this? The answer was soon revealed. He's noticed it, do it quickly. Just when Jia Yan was about to step into the subspace, Su Minfu's expression changed drastically as she looked at Jia Yan, and then a female voice shouted sharply. At this very moment, Jia Yan suddenly realized that around his body, several monsters at the sub-level had greatly changed in strength. There are more than 20 female sub-level monsters surrounding Jia Yan. They were all selected before and are known as the top powerful geniuses in the sub-level. But now among the 20-odd monsters, the 3 closest to Jia Yan have actually undergone a huge change in strength, and their strength has exploded, reaching a half-star level. There is even a semi-star with terrifying strength and even high talent. Jia Yan, since you've come to join the war, it's not right to leave like this. Please stay here. This highly gifted semi-star existence spoke calmly. Then the expression on Jia Yan's mosquito head changed, and he felt that the subspace area he had just opened was actually condensed, and his body suddenly stagnated. The next moment, his retreat speed stopped, and the subspace he opened completely disappeared. The opponent's terrifying advanced talent, half-star control, suppressed the power and instantly eliminated Jia Yan's retreat. At this moment, 2 other half-star beings with moderate talents also attacked together. Sure enough, it is a big deal. There is a half-star with medium talent and a half-star with high talent. How could I, Jia Yan, be so talented that I can actually work for you seniors? Jia Yan was still able to laugh at this almost critical life and death moment for him recently. After seeing a few semi-star geniuses with explosive strength, he already understood the reason for the whole thing. All this is just a conspiracy. A conspiracy against him, Jia Yan. Moreover, for this conspiracy, the other party not only dispatched 2 fleets, but also destroyed several supply ships in a pretense of war. They even arranged 3 terrifying half-stars beside Jia Yan. Among them, there is actually a highly talented semi-star powerhouse. You must know that in this dark field, it is difficult to see high-level semi-stellar experts. If you still have the guts to laugh, go to Shiyuan and die. A half-star being with moderate talent came to Jia Yan. Hearing that Jia Yan was in such a desperate situation, he laughed out loud. Suddenly, his face flashed with evil energy, and then his feet shot out, like light, extremely fast. At this moment, Jia Yan also shot out his front foot. As soon as the 2 sides touched each other, they retreated together, and a heart-shaking loud noise sounded in the universe. Sure enough, it's really amazing. A mere second-level existence can compete evenly with a mid-level talent and a half-star powerhouse. You, MOK, should be regarded as the #1 genius I have ever seen in my life. However, you still have to die. Just after Jia Yan exchanged blows with the half-star being, the half-star strongman attacking from the other side had already arrived in front of him. Jia Yan had just exchanged a blow with a moderately gifted and semi-star strong person, and he had already suffered a big loss. Now that his old strength was gone and his new strength was coming, the opponent came with a bombardment, and Jia Yan had no defense at all. But before that, a muscular figure stopped in front of this medium-talented being. It is Jia Yan's secondary clone. You, an ordinary high-level talent, dare to stop me. You are simply looking for death. That half-star being with moderate talent was furious when he saw Jia Yan's clone dared to stand in front of him, and then slammed it down with his stone giant-like palm. The opponent's body is huge, the size of a palm, enough to cover the entire clone. If hit by this blow, the clone might die entirely. At this moment, a huge suction force suddenly appeared in the visible universe. Boom! Thanks to the book friend helplessly hidden the body and the name for the 500 starting coin reward. Thanks to the 2 book friends stars.